Welcome to the very first episode of the Review Crew, IGN's brand new show where we invite our friends from around the gaming community to come on and talk about the biggest and best games of the week. This week's game is Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Eivor, claim your place in Valhalla.
I'm your host, Zach Ryan, and on this episode, my crew consists of Brandin Tyrrel, manager of editorial events at IGN, Nicole Carpenter, senior reporter at Polygon, and Cameron Hawkins, staff writer at DualShockers. First of all, I just want to say congrats on wrapping such huge reviews in such a tight timeline. Thank you guys so much for joining me here on the very first episode of the Review Crew. To start us off, to get this conversation going, I'd like for each of you to talk a little bit about your history with the Assassin's Creed franchise and your thoughts on the review. Cam, can we go ahead and start with you?
I love Assassin's Creed. It's one of my favorite franchises. I've played every entry outside of Liberation, which I plan to do, and I enjoyed Valhalla. I'm kind of like one of those, I don't want to say like purists, but I do kind of wish that Assassin's Creed was the traditional, more action-adventure Assassin's Creed than the more RPG aspects. But, Valhalla really surprised me in like still making it feel like a traditional Assassin's Creed game while still implementing those new elements to the RPG genre of what they're doing. And I loved it.
Nice. Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah, so my background with Assassin's Creed, I've played just about every single one of them, starting way back when it was a stealth action game, and then to sort of pivot off Cam's point, the series has moved into RPG territory now, big open world RPG territory, and I actually enjoy that. I think that's a little bit more my speed. I understand the stealth action genre is near and dear to a lot of people, and that's what makes Assassin's Creed for them. But my review, I really wanted to focus on just sort of what the game does, right? Like every time we see a new Assassin's Creed, every new iteration is slightly different than the last one. Sometimes they lean more towards stealth action. Sometimes they lean more towards, The Witcher 3. So I wanted to really kind of figure out, get down to the nuts and bolts, what this game did and what it did well. And that was sort of the philosophy behind the review.
Nice. Nicole?
Well, I played Assassin's Creed 1, 2, and 3, but I haven't played anything else. So I came to this as kind of like shocked at how different it was from the first three Assassin's Creed games. But I wanted to approach the review from someone like who's coming to this like, I haven't played an Assassin's Creed game in a long time. What's this about? And I thought that was kind of a unique perspective to bring to it. Like people who might not like Assassin's Creed games, but will probably like Valhalla. That's what I was going for. And honestly, I like the change away from the first three games because I think a lot of the Assassins stuff is batshit crazy.
That's awesome. And that is a unique perspective. Like I do think that, specifically talking about IGN, we have a tendency, like once somebody starts reviewing something in a series, like take Brandon, for example, like he kind of becomes the Assassin's Creed guy. So I like the idea of, 3 entries into a series, somebody new coming in and talking about this game as a new addition into an established franchise. So I think that's a cool take. I did want to ask each of you, now that your reviews are up, you powered through the game. Where are you at with the game now? Are you going back to finish up side quests? Are you, finishing up any of the raids that you might have left behind? Or did you basically just like wash your hands like, hey, I spent enough time with Assassin's Creed?
There's the thing about this game is that, it took me around 60 hours, but the story mission itself is like one small portion of the game, right? It is massive. It's huge. There's a ton to do, as with most Ubisoft open world games. So at this point, I'm just kind of like taking the time to go back and explore the mysteries that I missed out on the first time, or that I saw and just didn't have time to go see.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm approaching it too. I finished it in about 65 hours, and now I'm at like 80 hours. I went back this morning and I killed all of the Order of the Ancient folks. So that tree entirely gone. And now I'm kind of working on my settlement, figuring things out, learning how to fish. Just living the slow Viking life now.
Yeah, you know,
Right?
you're
Just
done.
Get into it. I mean, like, what else? What else is a role playing game for if you can't like role play?
For me, I'm trying to finish up the Order of the Ancients stuff as well, and the more side quests of like, oh, fight this Viking of old or fight this legendary beast. Those boss battles of sorts. So those are the main things I'm going to definitely. I'm still trying to finish up, and then also beat all those Orlog people because that is a really fun game. That is a really
Dude,
fun game.
I had a half-hour match of Orlog this morning. I cannot stop playing with those dumb dice.
Sweet victory.
Each of you have, you've spent your time to get through your review, but you're coming back to the game and like mopping up side quests and learning to fish. And like, I think that's a testament to a really great open world game. So it's exciting to know that like, as somebody who hasn't finished the game yet, that you guys are coming back to revisit Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And it's not just sort of a, okay, I rolled credits and now I'm done with it kind of thing. So that's awesome. So for our next topic, I want to talk a little bit about everything that Assassin's Creed does, but I want to focus on a few main spots. And I want to start with settlements, because that was a thing that each of you talked about in your reviews. Brandin, this is a sort of pseudo management sim embedded in this game. And you said that eventually the allure of my settlement began to dwindle. And I found myself spending less on my building plans and more time getting my shopping done before I went out to discover new and interesting things. Can each of you talk a little bit about what works and what doesn't work with Ravensthorpe?
Yeah, I think there's some validity to what Brandon said, where it's kind of just like you come in, you do what you got to do, start a feast, get your buff, and head out. But I also think that's really cool how there's this flexibility on like what you want to build first and how you progress in your settlement. Because I do think that like every time I do go back to my settlement, when I build something or I add something, it does feel like there is this growth, there is this progression, there is this sense of home in the settlement. But I do agree that it is very much a come in, either upgrade your gear, drop off an artifact, sell this like legendary skin, or all those type of things, and then hop back out.
I spent a lot of time in my settlement, but I think it was more after I finished the main quest. And so for the main part of the game, it was also kind of a stopover place for me. And I wasn't, I kind of got into this mindset where I was so nervous to make the right decisions on what to upgrade and to what moves to make for my settlement, that it almost became paralyzing for me. Like that was like, there are so many choices there. I wasn't sure what the correct one was, at least the correct one for me. And that made me stressed out. But now that I have finished the game and I have so much money, I can basically do anything I want.
Another thing I want to talk about is raids. This is a new addition to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, kind of similar to the giant stormfront attacks from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. But specifically, I wanted to start with Nicole, because your review, the way that you talked about raids was really interesting to me. Your review specifically, you talked about, you said the expression of stealth where narrow longships sneak up to encampments to attack without warning. But you also praised the game for allowing you to cause chaos and deal with it rather than spend the time planning out attacks. So I want to start by asking you, do raids sort of represent the perfect blend of old school and new school Assassin's Creed sensibilities?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it, because the stealth element for me is riding up on my longship and attack and blowing the horn, and then everyone's going in. So I'm not sneaking around myself. I'm just like shooting right into these monasteries to raid them. And then I like that I can move ahead and kind of work strategically through these places quicker by being stealthy, but really the main way that I like to play is to just smash everything.
Let's go. It's time to capture a kingdom.
Yeah, and it's actually almost a requirement to go in guns a-blazing for raids.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because
there's guns in this game?
Yeah.
Yeah, guns.
It's like
Big spoilers.
But you can do it stealthily, but like what Nicole said, man, riding up on your long ship, blowing that horn while you're on the ship, especially when there's that weird, like I wrote about it in my review, but that David Fincher God ray light coming down, like around the cross on top of the steeple, and you're running up the hill into the blinding light. There's something like cinematic and biblical and just friggin' awesome about that.
All these monks just running away from you in every direction.
Pandemonium. Yeah. Like your Vikings just start whipping torches at thatch roof huts, and like priests and monks and abbots like scream and yell at you in different tongues and run in different directions. It's a very, very cool, like structured event that isn't part of the main story. And that's so refreshing, because like sometimes I just want to hit something with my axe, and I don't want to go do a 12-part mission in order to, siege a castle. So I'm going to go raid Kent for a while, and then I'll come back and do something else,
I'm curious about what Kent ever did to you, but I mean, I guess that's your game.
Too far.
This talk about like these monks pouring out of the church and thatch roofs catching on fire and stuff like that, like I think it speaks really well to this next point. Like Cam's review talks about Ubisoft's efforts to make this the most immersive Assassin's Creed, and noted that the world that they've built here feels real, even when what you're accomplishing wasn't always super compelling. And this is sort of core to what I was talking about early on, where I mentioned playing a lot of these games but sort of falling off, and it's because I think an open world sort of lives and breathes on the strength of its side quests, and the immersiveness that those side quests represent. So I'd like each of you to talk a little bit about what has changed with Assassin's Creed Valhalla side quests, because I feel like each of you talked about how these side quests are improved and different from the previous entries.
A lot of the sort of quests that you get that aren't, your main story pillar quests come from your settlement. So it's making friends with the hunter, and making friends with the tattoo lady who suffered a loss in her life, or finding out old rivals or people's hidden pasts. And there's a lot of cool, interesting side characters in your settlement that you get to know and experience over time.
The really neat thing is that they don't necessarily show up in your quest log. So you have to pay attention to what the person's telling you. You can't just kind of rush through it. You have to understand what your objective is here. My favorite side quest that I've seen so far is running into this house where this couple's fighting because they don't have a great sex life, and they need the spark of fire to get their jollies off. And so I set their house on fire for them, and it worked. And so, like that didn't show up in my quest log. You just kind of go along with it. And that's really neat. It also helps in not overwhelming the player, I think, with having this like massive list of things to do. Just kind of going with it while it's happening.
There is one thing though that it just, with it being an open world game and you seeing all these nodes on the map, is that it still feels like you're playing a checklist open world game where it's just like, all right, let's go do this side quest and let's go do this side quest, instead of it organically like coming to pass where you're just, you might be on your way to a different objective. And then again, like the woman on the side of the road with the wolves are being attacked. And like, that is a legitimate side quest that you just like, oh, that's a side quest right now. Let's take care of that really quick. So I and again, like I love Assassin's Creed, but and while I think that they Ubisoft Montreal did succeed in trying to make this like the most immersive world, ever in this franchise, it still like has that feeling of like, all right, got to check this off my list, got to check this off my list.
But I do think the shift from having a list of things to do, and not even that, like you have to go talk to somebody and then you get a quest and then it adds to your list and then you go do the thing and then you return and turn it in. That is, I think, that is a relic of the past. We need to move more toward the direction that Ubisoft's taking this, where you do the synchronization thing on top of a tower and suddenly there are 40 little bulbs all around you in every direction. And you're like, cool, I know where you are. Next time I'm in the area, or if I'm just looking for like a detour, I can go check that out.
We're talking a lot about side quests here, and obviously that's like a staple to RPGs. And now that Assassin's Creed is a full-fledged RPG, there are a few RPG-specific things that I do want to talk about with Valhalla, and mainly that's how the game handles progression and loot. Nicole, your review, you talk a little bit about how the skill tree, the full skill tree, is a little bit overwhelming, and that you started sort of just clicking random things, and because you simply couldn't make a choice. And Brandon's review similarly says that you don't know what the next skill is in the next group until you spend the points to head in that direction, and it's really frustrating early on. Does the panel feel like moving away from a traditional level system from the previous two games is a mistake? Or is there merit in a steep power curve like the one that Assassin's Creed Valhalla sets up?
I think the cool thing about the skill tree, regardless of how overwhelming it is that you can respec it at any time. So if you start clicking through and you don't like what you've done, you can just redo it. And I did that a couple of times because I didn't like the direction my skill tree was going in, and that made it feel that made me feel okay just clicking randomly and just like going with it.
It's frustrating when like I have 2 points left. I could spend 1 on this node, and then that'll unlock this, and I can move over there. And so I spend it and unlock it to reveal the next node. But it's nothing I want over there. So now I respec, and then I have to go this way, right? So there's just this feeling of like kind of fumbling around in the dark to figure out what you want to do. And if you're anywhere in the territory of like min-maxing or like super optimization to make sure your character is as powerful as they can be at every point along the way, it does like kind of throw a wrench in the whole system.
The other big change, I think, this time around, something that Cam and Brandon both touched on, was the streamlined loot system. Cam, in your review, you said that the gear is much more minimal than in previous entries, and while this might be a turnoff for some, there's still a solid variety of weapons, and you don't have to rummage through your menus after almost every encounter. This is one of several places that Assassin's Creed Valhalla has been streamlined from the previous entries. What is the overall sort of takeaway from streamlining a system like this?
For me, whether it be in Origins, which I really enjoyed, and then Odyssey, which I didn't enjoy so much, like it was just kind of getting tiresome of just looting bodies, and then there's a new weapon each time, and then you just have to dismantle or sell them, or whatever it may be, instead of just focusing on like a core set of gear. You can choose to do that, or you can choose to do another set and try out different weapons. Like I ended up switching to a hammer, which I really, really liked.
You can simplify something and then you can dumb it down, and it's been simplified, right?
Okay.
It's also still very flexible. Like he said, you get your dad's axe. This is my bearded axe. I don't need another one, but there are other ones out there, right? There's 3 or 4, maybe 5 other ones.
Can I stop you for just a second? I just want to make sure that I heard that correctly. Are you saying that the axe has a beard?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
like all Viking related things.
Awesome.
Axes, dogs, children, full beards. Your axe is your axe. And if you find another bearded axe with a better passive, you can upgrade that one and then put ruins in it. So there's a lot of ability to make things flexible,
I'm never going to not laugh at the idea of an axe with a beard. I think that is so funny. I really love that.
More like my blows. Keep the other idiot busy. I'm a coward.
One thing that you unanimously agreed on was that there's a lot of strength in Valhalla's Norse world and Norse mythology. Brandon, you said that tackling something so mystical and otherworldly had to be tough, but the end result is more realistic and a granular take on it. Nicole and Cam also pointed out in their reviews that you guys are just super impressed with just how much mythology is really at play here. It seems like Assassin's Creed in the last few entries has really leaned into this sort of into the fantastic. And my question to y'all is, how does that benefit the series as a whole? This lean into mysticism and this lean into sort of the more fantastic elements, and does it detract at all from the more serious elements of the game?
I would say that when it comes to Valhalla, at least the fantastical, like the mysticism that they do in the game, they do it in a way that makes sense. That's like still like, I feel like that's realistic for this is technically still like a real life simulator of sorts.
We're 3 games deep now in this new RPG system, and I think it works because of the time periods these take place in, because they are introduced gradually. They are introduced with a sense of this isn't Ubisoft's other open world Greek game, Immortal Phoenix Rising, right? This isn't that. It's not, hey, we're in mythology. We are in the real world, and they find ways to bring that mythology into the real world the point I'm trying to get to is that they do make efforts to figure out ways to bring that into the world in a way that makes sense. That isn't just like, hey, it's Odin. Pretty cool, right? King of the gods.
And I think the reason that is because this mythology isn't mythology to the Norse people.
Yeah.
It's how they feel. Assassin's Creed has always been a game that is really it's steeped in religion, and the beliefs of the Norse people are treated in that way.
We Norse have a name for men and women with courage like yours. Drenger. I name you one now.
We're talking a lot about the mythology and the characters in this world, and we talked a little bit about Ivor and her character. But I do feel like I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about Ubisoft this year. They've had not a great year, both internally and externally. There's been rampant misconduct accusations earlier this year. Bloomberg had talked about a previous report that Ubisoft executives had said that the female protagonists wouldn't sell, and Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Assassin's Creed Valhalla give players the option to play as a female lead. In Assassin's Creed Valhalla, there's an option to play, either gender, but then also let the animus choose and swap on the fly based on where you're at in the story. And Nicole's review points out this out specifically as something that is like very strange. Even though both characters are considered canon,
Right.
she said it ends up, you said it ends up feeling hollow because the only real difference is the voice and the characterization. I wanted to open up this topic to the panel and ask what Valhalla gets right and what Valhalla gets wrong with gender and representation in this regard.
Specifically, I loved the way that Ivar came off in the game. I thought she was a really good character, and I'm saying she because I also chose to play as a female Ivor. And I wrote about this in my review that I kind of struggled when I thought about it a little bit, because I think the way that she comes off is because she's written as, being male or female. There is no specifics regarding her gender there. And so I like the way she came off, but I can't help but imagine what the game would have been if they wrote this character as a specifically female character during this time. And that was something that I thought about consistently in the review. And, because it really makes no difference, the animus choosing. I don't see how this plays into the story in a really meaningful way. And I think that it could have been a different game, maybe for the better, maybe for the worse, if they wrote her as a female character.
They should just do a female protagonist if they're going to do that. Like, don't make it an option, because we don't have enough female protagonists. But I would love if there was just like, hey, this is a female character in the next main line, and this is how it is.
And so I raise my horn to the Raven clan, the best of friends and fighters.
We're about wrapped up here. I've got one more segment, and that is the lightning round. Here, I'm going to ask the panel a bunch of different questions. Just rapid fire. Let's just get them out here. So,
are you going to direct these at us, or are these just going to be softballed?
No. I'll point them at people, and but feel free to jump in and chat them.
Let me get in a better position here. I gotta.
Ready to all right, tee yourself up, Brandon. Yeah. All right. Okay. So first question is for Nicole. Nicole, what makes a better assassin? 2 knives for hands or 2 guns for feet?
Knives for hands for sure. How are you gonna walk with guns for feet?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like you can figure it out. Brandon, what makes a better open world RPG? A great main quest or great side quests?
Great side quests.
Right on. Cam, how many dogs did you pet in the course of your playtime?
I pet at least 1. I think I pet 2. But here's the thing. You can literally summon a wolf to attack your enemy, and you can't pet him after. Why not? Patch it in, Ubisoft. Patch it in. Just like you kill someone, there you go. Get a little pat.
Nicole, is Assassin's Creed a Game of the Year contender in 2020?
It's not, it's not my top game, but I'm sure it's a contender. It's in there somewhere.
Brandon, be honest with us. Would you buy a Viking rap battle CD?
No, I would not. Flighting is fun, but man, some of those rhymes were a little on the nose, if I'm being honest.
Oh, to beat such a braggart will surely be fun.
Quick to bite back.
Cam, Valhalla introduces auto assassination in an effort to allow players to experience something closer to the original Assassin's Creed games. do you feel like this breaks the game? And sort of on a philosophical level, is this cheating?
No, I played around with this in my review. I think that the auto assassinations they make the right balance of them. Like for the kind of grunt enemies, you can auto assassinate, and then for those that are much bigger, but aren't boss battles per se, there's a quick little QTE, and if you get it, you kill them automatically, and if you don't, then you do a lot of damage, but you still have to fight them. And I think that even though like again, as a traditional Assassin's Creed person, I think that the way the game was built, I think that was like the perfect way to design that, and you can still change it to auto in the options if you want for all enemies. So that's cool.
Nicole, what's the single biggest improvement that you want to see from Assassin's Creed in the next installment?
Just get rid of the real world stuff. Just
thank
get
God.
it all out.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
No more.
No.
Okay,
Just
so
make it
Cam,
better. Just make it better. Just make it better.
I mean, that's a good counterpoint though. Like, just what if it was better?
my last question is for the whole panel here. Does Assassin's Creed Valhalla do enough differently and do enough the same so that newcomers and serious fans alike will enjoy it?
Absolutely. I think it's it's a great mix of both. I think that I really think it's just kind of like a history book of like all the great features that were in previous Assassin's Creed games, or things that like you remember from Assassin's Creed games, like how you get the tattoo designs, are like how you got the shanties in Black Flag, and like the settlement reminds me of the villa in Assassin's Creed 2 and rebuilding Rome and Brotherhood. Like, there's a lot of callbacks in the best ways while still making Valhalla its own experience, that I think it's the perfect golden standard of what the Assassin's Creed games should be moving forward with this RPG genre direction they're taking.
Unfortunately, I have to cut you guys short because that is about all the time that we have for this very first episode of Review Crew. Nicole, Brandin, Cam, please tell folks where they can find you. Tell us what you're working on next. Just please plug your stuff.
I'm Brandin Tyrrel. I work at IGN. You can find me there where I write stuff and work on events and whatnot. I'm also on Twitter. You can reach me there at Brandin Tyrrel on Twitter. It's just my name.
I write. You can find my words at Polygon, and on Twitter I'm at Sweet Potatoes. So with Thanksgiving coming up, it's my time to shine. I'm looking forward to it greatly. But I just got the Xbox Series S today, or X today. So that's what I'm gonna get to.
Nice.
Speaking of which, Valhalla looks great on it.
Amazing. It looks insane.
Fantastic. Yeah.
My name is Cameron Hawkins. I write over at DualShockers.com. You can follow DualShockers on Twitter at DualShockers. You can follow me on Twitter at The Cinephile Guy. And I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/TheCinephileGuy. What I'm working on right now, I'm working on some reviews that I can't talk about, but are coming soon.
Thanks to everyone on my panel today, and thanks to you at home for watching. Remember, we're coming to you every Monday with a fresh cast from around the gaming world to talk about the biggest and best games of the week. But this is our very first episode, and we want to hear what you think. If you've got questions or suggestions for improvements or recommendations for people you want to see on the show, drop them in the comments below, or shoot us an email at reviewcrew@ign.com. We'll be back next Monday to discuss Demon's Souls, the first big PS5 exclusive, with IGN's Mitchell Saltzman, GameSpot's Timur Hussein, and Steve Saylor from Can I Play That? Until then, stay safe, stay smart, and keep it locked to IGN.